Players who practice their basketball and baseball skills day and night to get recruited by any of the NBA and MLB teams would have never thought that after getting selected they'd also need to catch any trash and cans hurled at them along with balls. Shocking. Yet, this is exactly what happens in games nowadays. Here's what we know about the brutal fans. First up, Cleveland Guardians under attack. Imagine being a right fielder of a team and your most important catch isn't a home run, but a beer can thrown at you from spectators. This is exactly what happened when Oscar Mercado, who had to catch a beer can during a game in the last days of April. He wasn't the only one who found himself at the receiving end of hate, as all Cleveland Guardian outfielders dealt with this issue when garbage was being thrown at them by the Yankees fans. Things got so out of hand at one point that hitter Giancarlo Stanton and right fielder Aaron Judge had to leave their positions to pacify the angry fans. Guardians outfielder Miles Straw called the Yankees fandom the worst fan base on the planet and described the whole situation as brutal. And now, in-game racism at its worst. Yankees fans aren't only brutal, but the cherry on top, they're also racist. White Sox player Tim Anderson was at the receiving end of racist comments by Yankees fans during his team's match against the New York Yankees. Apparently, a Yankees player started this and fans just went with it. Yankees slugger Josh Donaldson, who's white, was accused by Tim Anderson, who's black, of calling him Jackie Robinson. Tim also had to play between the deafening chants of the Yankees calling him Jackie, and still he managed to hit a 3-run homer. Then he put a finger to his lips to silence the Yankees fans calling him Jackie, and his 3-run homer also helped his team beat the Yankees 5-0. Don't know about you guys, but we stan a king here. Donaldson admitted that he called Anderson Jackie, but he said that it was an inside joke between him and Anderson when the latter once told him that he felt like his age's Jackie Robinson, who's a legendary baseball player. The Yankees manager said that Donaldson didn't mean any harm, but we need the Yankees management to control their fans. Up next, the NBA also faced difficulties with animal rights activists. Abusive and heated arguments between fans and players are quite normal in the NBA, but a surprising thing happening during a playoff game between the Minnesota Timberwolves and Memphis Grizzlies when an animal rights protester ran onto the court. She ran in a referee jersey, but soon she was detained. But what did an NBA match have to do with animal rights? The sudden protest was in response to the Timberwolves owner, Glenn Taylor, having claims of animal cruelty. And if you think this is an NBA and MLB problem, then you are wrong. Which sport is free from the wrath of angry fans? None. Sheffield United's captain Billy Sharp was headbutted by a spectator and had to get 4 stitches on the lip. The fan had now been jailed for 24 weeks after he pleaded guilty. Aston Villa's goalkeeper, Robin Olsen, was attacked after the match between Aston Villa and Manchester City. After the game ended, the field was flooded by Manchester City fans, during which the goalkeeper got injured. Manchester City, while not being at fault, still apologized to Aston Villa, and they said that they'd punish the person responsible once they found him. Why are these violent events happening? We're sure that all hardcore basketball fans remember the time when watching basketball changed forever. No, we aren't talking about Michael Jordan or LeBron James's debut, but the fight that took place between players and spectators in 2004. We say fight because the spectators charged the players. The players responded. This riot obviously had some terrible consequences, one being that the players were suspended for many games, and they also observed a pay cut on top of that. This was the moment when the NBA decided that they weren't taking players straight out of high school, and they had to attend university to get recruited. Now, let's hear from a sports psychologist. Mark Aogi, who's a sports psychologist and professor at the University of Denver, has his thoughts about the never-ending violent games. He said that what's stopping us from witnessing another Malice at the Palace event is the patience that the players are exhibiting today. He thinks that the amount of security in these professional games is a joke. There's no match for such an unruly crowd. He also said that in any other setting, what players are bearing today would be considered criminal. The minimum that can happen at games is verbal abuse, and in any other setting, that too would be illegal or draw a reaction. But in sports, players never respond to this form of abuse. He said that there are no boundaries in sports, and the players only respond when the assault becomes physical to them or forbidden words are said to the members. He thinks that these violations are already way over criminal levels of assault. Seeing the incidents, we can't agree more. Has the pandemic got anything to do with escalating violence? The graph of violence in games is an exponential one. Analysts and psychologists think that the pandemic pandemic has a major role to play in this violence. For over 2 years, the fans couldn't watch the games in person because of the pandemic. But as soon as life returned to the stadiums, violent events also increased. Spitting and throwing water bottles and popcorn at players became common. Russell Westbrook, an American professional basketball player, was the one on whom popcorn was thrown. He said that it was fortunate that he couldn't go to the stands because that was bull S. He admitted that it had happened a lot to him and he has learned to ignore it, but he can't always let things like this off the hook. He believes that there has to be some kind of punishment so fans can't just harass players as they please. After all, these kinds of incidents aren't common off the court, and he's sick and tired of them. Aogi said the reason behind the increased level of violence is the pent-up frustration that fans had been harboring during the lockdowns. He said that when people were forced to wear masks and be quarantined, they had less autonomy, and this resulted in a mental health crisis. Some fans celebrated their freedom by throwing bottles at the players, all because they could. Aogi can't help but wonder if the pandemic created this whole situation or just worsened what was already brewing. Next, players' families are also not safe. Angry fans are getting their hands on whatever they can, even if that includes disturbing the privacy of the players' families. During an NBA playoff between Dallas Mavericks and Phoenix Suns on Mother's Day, Mavericks fans touched the Phoenix Suns player Chris Paul's mother several times. Do you see the irony here? They disturbed the peace of a mother on Mother's Day. They reportedly also pushed the player's wife. Mavericks responded to the situation and banned the two people involved in the matter till 2023. The NBA spokesperson said that the people involved got a 19-month ban and measures were taken to protect players' families. The NBA has its policy for dealing with these situations. They said that it concerns them every time anyone in the game has a negative interaction with a fan, or even when fans have to go through unpleasant situations. The NBA spokesperson said that they have a zero-tolerance policy for disruptive behavior. They have an NBA fan code of conduct, and anytime someone violates it, they address the situation immediately through security and even through law enforcement agencies when needed. They also educate players and their families on ways to avoid unpleasant situations with fans when they aren't playing among their home crowd. We appreciate the NBA's efforts, but we believe that they should also educate unruly fans because players are already under so much pressure, and thinking about their family's safety during games shouldn't be one of them. Fans believe that they're helping their team by assaulting the other team players or by calling them names during the game. Instead, they should support their team in a way that doesn't involve hurting other team players physically or mentally. Let's have a look at other sports news. NHL faces racism. Hockey also isn't spared from hate crimes, as several social media threats were made against Colorado Avalanche's Nazem Kadri, and they're working with law enforcement to counter these threats. Nazem Kadri is a Muslim of Lebanese descent who is at the center of racist threats. The threats came after that encounter he had with Blues goalie Jordan Binnington, where Binnington had a lower back injury. Next, protest during a baseball game. San Francisco Giants manager Gabe Kapler wrote an emotional letter and recorded his protest against the tragedy in Uvalde, Texas, by not showing up for the U.S. national anthem. The elementary school shooting in Uvalde was a horrific incident, and Kapler said that he didn't plan to take the field for the national anthem until he felt better about the direction of the country. He highlighted having stronger gun control laws to prevent such tragedies from happening in the future. Lastly, LeBron James joins the billionaire club. According to Forbes, the net worth of the basketball player is $1 billion. He has the distinction of being in the first active NBA player to reach the status, as Michael Jordan didn't reach billionaire status until 11 years after retiring. That's simply legendary. And that's a wrap for this video. See you at the next one.